Hey YouTube, what's going on? Snowflarky's Emos here today with a new deck profile. This is my Horus the Black Flame Dragon deck profile. This is just a for fun deck I put together that allows me to play and summon Horus the Black Flame Dragon, one of the coolest, iconic Yu-Gi-Oh monsters. Big fan of it. Big fan of level monsters in general. Unfortunately, they have not given much support to Horus. Hopefully that'll come up for hopefully that'll come in the future. But for now, just something I put together to have a little fun with, and it's pretty cool. It summons Horus, which is a really powerful boss monster that can negate all your opponent's spells. And to do so, I use the help of my Prediction Princess engine, probably something you've seen quite a bit on this, but it is pretty sweet. So with that, let's get into the profile. Starting off with our monsters, I am playing one copy of Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 8. This is the big boss for Horus, the highest form. This card cannot be normal summoned or set. This card can not be special summoned except by the effect of Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 6. And of course, while this card remains face up on the field, you can negate the activation and effects of any spell cards and destroy them. So you can use this on both players, but you can use it on just your opponent because you get to choose whether to activate it, which makes it a little different than Silent Swordsman level 7, who just negates all spells. So it's pretty cool. Once you get Horus Black Flame Dragon, no, your opponent is not going to resolve any spells as long as it's on the field, and that is incredibly powerful. Very fun back in the playground days for people to try to put this in Jinzo in a deck and try to get a spell trap lockdown negation. Here we're just playing Horus. It's hard enough to summon, so we're not going to brick it up that much. But we're only playing this at one copy because Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 8 is a brick. We don't want to see it in our hand, and a lot of the time we can summon it from the deck, and it's very unlikely that we're going to go into multiple copies, if even get this far with the deck. So, we just want one to make sure that we're drawing cards that we want to see and not getting stuck with too many big horses. Also, this card looks beautiful in this rarity. Anyway, moving right along, I am playing 3 copies of Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 6. This is the one I want to see and the one I'm going to be summoning on the field. So Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 6. This card is unaffected by spell effects, and during the end phase, if this card destroyed a monster by battle this turn, you can send this face-up card to the graveyard and special summon a Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 8. So we got plenty of ways to summon this card out from our hand, and when we see it, we can summon it, especially against Prediction Princesses. Just develop a lot of extra monsters that can be tributed away. And this card's unaffected by spells on its own, which is pretty cool. And of course, that effect to summon level 8 is not that hard. All we have to do is destroy a monster by battle. 2300, it's easy to find something that we can destroy by battle. But we also have another way to level up this card, so with multiple options. I am playing 3 of this because I'm not playing any searchers for this card. So if I find some searchers I like that can search this, I might cut this down to 2 copies and play a searcher or 2. But for right now, we are playing the 3. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Prediction Princess Terratray. Yes, I am using Prediction Princesses, and you'll see why in a bit. Just a series of cards that I've quite invested a lot of time into figuring out how they play and figuring out cool things to do with them. Terratray is their big boss monster, a ritual monster. It's 9 stars. And of course has the effect that once per turn you can either flip a monster face up or face down, which is really great for flip effect decks, and Prediction Princesses are a flip effect strategy, so that's cool. We're going to be using that. And also, at the end phase of your turn, you can special summon a flip monster from your hand or graveyard in face down defense. So that is very cool. That's one of the ways we generate a lot of monsters on board, things that we'll be able to flip on our opponent's turn, and then if it's still around, we contribute for Horus. So pretty great card. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Pot of the Forbidden. Pot of the Forbidden is a pretty sweet card. It is a 9-star monster, so it is just enough stars to be 1 tribute for Terratray, usually what we want to be tributing, especially because we want to be summoning this off of Terratray's effect. And of course, Pot of the Forbidden says flip. You can activate one of these effects. Either draw 2 cards, return all spell and trap cards on the field to the hand, destroy all monsters your opponent controls, or look at your opponent's hand and shuffle 1 card from their hand back into the deck. So 4 very powerful effects that you get to choose from, all based on cards that were forbidden when this card came out, which is a cool flavor that it's Pot of the Forbidden. And yeah, so just a number of different things you're going to be able to do with this card. I think the one you'll end up using the most is destroying all monsters your opponent controls, because you can use that to disrupt a combo. But of course, you know, if you get your opponent down to top decking, you can basically lock them out of the game by shuffling in. So it's pretty cool. You'll, you know, tribute this for Terratray, and then at the end of the turn, you'll have Terratray summon it. Flip it. You know, if you can get rid of it on your field on your next turn, you definitely want to do that, so you can summon it from the grave in face down defense, ready to go. So that is a pretty cool card. And the flip monster that makes this deck work pretty well for me, I'm playing 2 copies of Apprentice Piper. This is in here because this is a great way to summon Horus on the field. Apprentice Piper is essentially just a flip effect monster that says you can special summon a monster from your hand. So if we have Horus ready to go, we can flip Apprentice Piper and summon Horus, which is pretty sweet. But this card even has another level of safety, which if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a monster from your hand. So if they pop this card while it's face down and you wouldn't normally get its flip effect, that's okay. We're still getting that effect to special summon a monster from our hand. You know, that's something we want to see. We want to see Horus. So it's pretty cool. Only playing 2 copies of this because it's searchable, and you know, it's not one of my starter pieces per se, just something I want to get a follow-up on. And it's not necessary to summon out Horus because it's pretty easy to have an extra monster on board to just tribute away, especially if it's a flip one that Terratray can bring back. So also useful for getting a dead Pot of the Forbidden out of your hand, just to get it cycling. So pretty sweet. Next, I am playing 3 copies of Spirit of the Fallwind, 1800 4-star monster that just says if this card is normal summoned, you can add a flip monster from your deck to your hand. So any flip monster, you can get it. Usually you want to get Pot of the Forbidden so that you have it to tribute for Terratray. If you already have that and you got Horus, you can grab an Apprentice Piper. Or if you want to move things along, you can even grab our next monster, which we'll just go into right now. And that monster is 2 copies of Prediction Princess Coin Rama. 3-star flip monster that just says you flip, you can special summon a level 3 or higher flip monster from your deck to face down defense position. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot activate effects but Prediction Princess effects. So it's pretty cool. Now, this card can't pull out Apprentice Piper from the deck, which is unfortunate, but it can pull out itself and Pot of the Forbidden, both of which are great choices and still warranted enough running. It is one of the reasons, though, that I've cut it down to 2 instead of 3 copies. And what's nice is this card is easily searchable from the prediction spell Ritual Spell. So, you know, pretty nice. Get it out of the deck. Next up, I'm playing 1 copy of Dino Wrestler Pankratops. Pankratops is just a great monster for a lot of rogue decks. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand. It's got 2600 attack, which is a big body, and it's also got a quick effect where you could tribute a Dino Wrestler monster to destroy a card your opponent controls. So, good way to force out a negate, good way to bait cards. Pretty cool. You know, something I'm trying out because I'm thinking about making Prediction Princesses always a going second deck and playing the big board breakers. And Dino Wrestler Pankratops is a great going second card. So it's in here. I'm still kind of mixing on going first and second currently. But, you know, I got Pankratops in here because it's all right for follow-up plays. And, you know, if I get stuck going second, it's a pretty good card to have. So that's 2 Pankratops. And last for our monsters, I'm playing 2 copies of Effect Veiler. You know, definitely might up this to 3. I'm just playing 2 because I've already filled out deck space and just other cards I want to talk about. Effect Veiler, you know, you just discard it from your hand on your opponent's main phase and negate an effect. So, you know, you can negate a searcher, a combo starter, anything you're looking to negate, pretty good. This can be any hand trap. Ash Blossom is probably better, but since this is a casual deck, I usually don't play Ash Blossom because I'm not playing against really strong decks when I play this usually. But, you know, so just make this any hand trap you want. Up it to 3 if you like. No problem at all. And that is it for the monsters. Starting off with our spell cards, I'm playing 2 copies of Level Up. This is our other way to level Horus level 6 into level 8. It's essentially a spell card that just says you can send a face-up level monster you control to the graveyard, and if you do, you can special summon the monster's name that's in its text as if it was special summoned by its own effect. So when Horus level 6 is on the field, you just send Horus level 6 away and summon Horus level 8, and that's pretty sweet. It means we can get out level 8 even if there's not a monster to proc its effect. We don't have to risk its effect to summon level 8 getting Solemn Striked or something like that, so it's good to have. I'm always flip-flopping whether to play 1 or 2 copies. 2 can sometimes be bricky because without Horus, this card literally does nothing, but sometimes I want to see it more, so ratio changes on this. This is the kind of thing that I cited out one of the hand traps for. So, you know, you would play it, decide how you feel. Mine always changes. You always got to be doing that. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Prediction Ritual. This is the ritual spell that summons out Terra Tray, but it also has an effect that on the turn this isn't sent to the graveyard, so on the next turn, you can banish this card to add a Prediction Princess monster from your deck to your hand. Normally, we want to grab Coin Rama, or if you got another ritual spell ready to go and want Terra Tray, you can grab Terra Tray. So, you know, good to have the options. Next, we are playing 3 copies of Pre-Preparation of Rites. This card is awesome for ritual decks where you can use it. It essentially says you can add a ritual spell and the monster whose name is specifically listed on the ritual spell from the deck to your hand. So Prediction Ritual does say Prediction Princess Terra Tray on it. So this card puts the ritual spell and Terra Tray from the deck into our hand. That's a plus. That's both materials we need for our ritual. So we usually always want to be seeing that card. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. This deck's not really good at extra deck board building, so we turn our extra deck into card advantage by banishing 3 to 6 random cards face down. We can draw a card for every 3 that we chose. So banish 6 extra deck cards, draw 2. Awesome to have. We can't use any other draw effects the turn we use this, but not too big of a deal. And then next up, something I've been playing more recently in Prediction Princess decks that I really like, 2 copies of Flawless Perfection of the Tenyi. So Flawless Perfection of the Tenyi is a field spell that says all non-effect monsters on the field are unaffected by monster effects. Not important for here, but what is important is the second effect. Once per turn, if your opponent special summons a effect monster, while you control a face-down monster or non-effect monster, you can draw 2 cards. So because they added that face-down monster in this text, this card is pretty dang good because in flip decks, we're going to always have face-down monsters, and so this card just draws you 2. And for that, that'll get you a lot of cards quickly. I think it's worth playing a couple copies of. Helps keep the deck fueled and moving, and that'll help you with follow-ups, and it kind of needs that steam. So pretty good. And we got a copy of Terraforming to search it. 1 terraforming for 2 field spells, that's alright. And then last on the spells, I am playing 1 copy of Book of Moon, a nice card to have in a flip deck. Target a face-up monster on the field, change that target to face-down defense. So really good for getting your flip effect monsters back face-down when you want them to. And of course, Book of Moon is a flexible card. You can use it to disrupt an opponent. Number of different things. It's just a good card for this deck. And that is it for our spell card. Next, we got a couple traps to go over. First off, I'm playing 2 copies of Summon Limit. This card is also a recent card I've been testing out in Prediction Princesses and kind of liking so far. Summon Limit basically says neither player can summon more than twice per turn. Now, while sometimes that will hinder you, it usually doesn't hinder you too much. Twice per turn is usually as much as you can summon if you're getting just a summon and then a Terra Tray summon. Can do a little more, and it's nice to have Horus online before Summon Limit. But anyway, it's still a good card to have, mainly because of one great interaction. When you have Terra Tray and a face-down Pot of the Forbidden, when your opponent summons 2 monsters, you can flip Pot of the Forbidden, destroy all monsters they control, and then chain Summon Limit. So they've already summoned twice, so after you blow up their field, they'll just have to pass on summoning monsters, leaving their field wide open, and you can get in a pretty good amount of damage. and that will hurt their follow-up turns. Summon Limit is, of course, just a really painful card for a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh decks to have to deal with that want to summon a lot. So definitely something I'm liking in here. Less good in this build than a normal Prediction Princess, but still worth it just to slow things down, and we're playing a slower deck, so when we slow things down, that helps us win. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. This is just, mainly for my duel group. Like I said, this is a for fun deck, and usually means I'm playing against other lower power level decks, and those are a little more dependent on trap cards, spell cards, so having this accessible removal is pretty good. We just flip this card up and destroy up to 2 spell and trap cards on the field in exchange for our battle phase, which doesn't matter if we use it on our opponent's turn. So this card can give us a plus if we're popping 2 opponent's spell and trap cards. Very nice. If you didn't have to face spell and trap cards, or if I'm in a matchup, I can easily side this out for another trap card. Just the kind of thing you got to do when you're playing traps, is adapt them to what you're playing against. And then just for a last card, I'm playing 1 copy of Solemn Judgment. Just my one, say no button. If there's a key card I really need to stop because if I do, I know I can win next turn. Or if my opponent's trying to out-summon limit and I want to say no, I can do that. In exchange for having my life points, I just negate a summon or a spell or trap card activation and destroy it. You do got to be careful because that half your life points can, do a lot of harm if you're doing it from 8,000. But, just something in here, always a good way to fill. Could be swapped for something else. Everything is a little up in the air. And that is it for the main deck. So with that, we'll be getting into our extra deck. Now, we're not extra deck building in this, so mostly my extra deck is just filler for extravagance, so I'm going with a Waking the Dragon package. I actually recently recorded just a standalone version of the Waking the Dragon extra deck, so I'll be including that in this video. It's going to be right now. Next, going over our extra deck really quickly. This is not a deck where we, combo off and summon a lot of extra deck monsters. So our extra deck is just being used for us to be able to play and or side Waking the Dragon. Waking the Dragon is a trap card that says if this set card in its owner's control has left the field because of an opponent's card effect and is now in the graveyard or banished, you can special summon a monster from your deck or extra deck. So we're going to put powerful monsters in our extra deck to summon off of Waking the Dragon if it were to get destroyed by an opponent. And, when you're playing trap card based decks, you got to be aware of Lightning Storm, Heavy Storm, Harpy's Feather Duster, stuff like that. And having a card to punish them for wiping your back row is pretty awesome to have. Now getting into my choices for Waking the Dragon targets, I'm playing 3 copies of Last Warrior from Another Planet. If your opponent pops Waking the Dragon and they don't have any monsters on board, you can summon this card, and it essentially says that neither player can summon monsters. So they can't summon monsters, all they can do is set, and if they don't have an out to this card, you'll just poke them down till you win the game. Do note that when it's summoned, it will destroy all your monsters, but usually not a big deal for that the advantage that it gives you. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Naturia Exterior. This is the target that we can summon if we're in a matchup that is very dependent on spell or trap card activations. If we have a card in our graveyard, we can essentially negate as many spells and traps as we want during the duel, because when a spell or trap card is activated, we just banish a card from our graveyard, send the top card of our deck to the graveyard, and if we do, we negate the activation and destroy the card. It's not limited to once per turn. We can use it reactively, so in certain matchups, this card will just outright win you the game. Next up, I have 3 copies of Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon. This is a 3,500 attack monster that's unaffected by card effects. That can be very hard to deal with for a lot of decks. It means we either gotta kaiju it or you gotta find a way to get over it by battle. And, that makes it pretty hard to deal with. If a deck does not have access to either of those and they can't deal with this card, it'll just win you the game. So do keep that in mind. Pretty good monster. Annoying to remove. Next up, we're playing 3 copies of Geomathmech Final Sigma. It's just Ultimate Falcon, but with 500 less attack, giving it 3,000 attack. And it's unaffected by card effects except Mathmech cards while in your extra monster zone, which is fine. There's not going to be anything else there, so we'll gladly summon it there. It does have one little effect over Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon, which is if it does battle damage to your opponent by battling a monster, that battle damage is doubled. So that can come in handy if your opponent has a monster with lower attack on the field when if this card is summoned and you want to do a lot of damage at once. So that is pretty cool. And last, I'm playing 3 copies of Blue Eyes Alternative Ultimate Dragon. This is a 4,500 attack monster that cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects, so not as good as being unaffected, but sometimes still enough, you know, in certain matchups, and in exchange you get 1,000 more attack than Ultimate Falcon, and you get an effect where instead of attacking you can just destroy a card on the field, which is it gives a little more flexibility. Definitely worth the slots. All these cards are maxed out at 3 so that I have some left in the extra deck even after extravagancy a couple times, and there'll always be something to summon as long as I haven't resolved all 3 extravagance before Waking the Dragon is destroyed. So that is it for my Horus, the Black Flame Dragon level 8 deck profile. Pretty fun. Does get Horus out a couple times, and it's always cool to see. Always fun to show off this really nice shiny Horus level 8, and then to negate opponent spell cards. You know, it's quite a pain. There's probably another number of other ways you can summon Horus. Maybe using some Monarch support is kind of cool, since Horus level 6 is like a 1 tribute monster. Just things like that. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your favorite level monster is, and if you're doing something with Horus, I'd love to know what it is, because I'd love to find more ways to use Horus. Big fan of level monsters. I would love for just some good generic level support. I like what they did with the Silent Magician and Swordsman, so let's get the other one. I mean, Armed Dragon's getting some love, but let's get Horus some love, and let's get Mystic Swordsman some love. Those are 2 cards I'm a big fan of, and you know, you can easily play Mystic Swordsman level 6 in this deck pretty well, and just sub out the level ups and the Horus stuff for just the level 6, because you could summon it off of Apprentice Piper pretty easily. Maybe I'll make a profile for that. But thanks for hanging out. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.